Hi, I'm Susanna Schick. I'm your moderator today, and I do sustainability consulting for fashion designers. I teach them how to find more environmental fabrics, which ones are the most environmental fabrics, what's really relevant for their line, because not everything is relevant for every designer. And so today we have a really interesting panel, and I have the list of panelists. So we're just going to go through and have everyone introduce themselves, starting with, on my left, Jason Kibbe, the CEO and founder of Pact Apparel. So,
how long do you want?
You have 2 minutes.
Hi there, my name is Jason Kibbe, and I have no fashion background in general. My apparel background at all is designing environmental campaigns for Patagonia. But I, with a colleague, Jeff Denby, a business school colleague of mine, started Pact about 2 years ago. We make organic premium underwear that connects with social and environmental campaigns. And we just launched a campaign on Thursday that gives a solar lantern to a family in need in Haiti with every pair that you purchase. So Pact, we launched about a year ago. We are right now primarily online, though we've been expanding our wholesale channel out over the last 6 months. And I'm a bit of a sustainability geek, so any questions about making a green product, I'm totally open to answer.
Cool. And next.
My name is MJ Prest. I'm the editor-in-chief of ethicalstyle.com. My background is in print journalism, but we founded Ethical Style in 2008. We're a website that comprises a blog and a magazine, an online-only magazine that publishes every 2 weeks. We focus on environmental issues as well as social issues, fair trade, organic cotton, animal rights, sweatshop labor, kind of the whole gamut. And previously, I was an editor at the Chronicle of Philanthropy, which is a national newspaper that focuses on nonprofit groups and corporate social responsibility issues.
Cool. Okay, and then Raisa?
Hi, everybody. My name is Raisa Girona. I am the designer and co-owner of Bridget Catisse. We launched the line, my partner is here, Damien, taking pictures for our blog, Closet Obsession. We launched the line in 2008, and everything that we make is made from recycled vintage fabric. So everything is hand cut, hand sewn, and made locally in downtown Los Angeles. And I am happy to be here.
Thank you. And then Dale?
Hi, I'm Dale Denkinson, and my background is that I was a designer at Patagonia for 10 years. And was there when Yvon Chouinard said no more conventional cotton. So I worked on a team that had to convert all the conventional cotton products, which is about $40 million in business, to organic. So I happened to be there at a time when it was pioneering in all the mills and factories, and everybody just looked at you like you were completely crazy. But we made it happen, and subsequently I started a company with some partners called eConscious in 2006, and we sell blank T-shirts, sweatshirts, headwear, bags to anybody who needs to decorate them or put their logo on them. So could be nonprofit, could be an event, could be a major corporation, or can even be wholesale brands who, just want to dip into our stock and use it. So that's the snapshot.
Thank you. And then Anna?
Hello, I am, is this on?
Yeah.
Is it? Hello? Oh, yeah. I'm Anna Griffin. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Coco Eco magazine, and we are the world's first and only high fashion beauty, celebrity, and cause-related publication. We are digital, and actually I was a model. I traveled all over the world and was very blessed to see some very beautiful things that inspired me into a great love affair for the planet. When, after An Inconvenient Truth came out, we were all sort of sitting in shock, and I particularly wanted to do something, so I chose to start a magazine with absolutely no experience. I was just a girl with a vision. 2 years later, it's really exciting. We are moving into live fashion events, so we're doing New York Fashion Week next year. We're also doing a live show in Brazil in October. I've been asked to do a live fashion event in the Caribbean in the spring, and we're also going to be bringing commerce into our site in an effort to support both sustainable designers and beauty brands, and also make product accessibility easier for you guys as our readers and consumers. I think the most exciting thing for us is we're sort of billed as the Vogue for a new generation, because we are, very, very conscientious. Everything we do is ethical, and actually the same with ethical style. Whether it's fair trade, it's animal rights, it's cause, it's women's issues. I mean, you name it. We are really a cause-based publication, but wrapped up in a very, very glossy, very sexy package.
Cool. Thanks so much. Okay, so yeah, you guys can hear me, right? Over the vast ocean of people up there. So we're going to go ahead and start with the questions. I'm opening them up to all of the panelists. So, somebody may answer first, someone second, whatever. We'll see how it goes. So the first question is, in this age when greenwashing is rampant, how do you differentiate a truly green brand and in turn make that difference valuable to the consumer? Who'd like to start?
I'll take a stab at it. Greenwashing is something that is really terrible, and it's out there rampantly in green fashion. I mean, most of the stuff that you see, they may do one or two things sustainably, but when you really look behind the seams, it's pretty terrible. And I think if you're looking to start your own label, or if you're looking at this as a consumer or someone who just cares about this, look for how transparent the company is, because it's impossible to make sustainable clothing. You'll have some sort of an impact no matter what you do. And those who come clean about the things that they do badly, even if they celebrate the things that they do really well, those are the ones who really are not the greenwashers. And I think that's how you can tell. It's about transparency.
I totally agree with Jason. I think it's not just relegated to the environmental realm either. There's also a lot of, I call it kind of pink washing because of the breast cancer awareness stuff. It isn't always, your purchase isn't always supporting the cause that you think it is. So I think the best thing you can do if you are a designer, or if you're a clothing marketer, is tell the consumer exactly why you're making the claim that you're making. So say we are donating 20% of the profits or of the sales to this cause, link to their website so people know why they should spend their money with you for an ethical reason.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So what are some of the new tools and methods or some new techniques that you're seeing develop in the area of sustainable fashion that most excite and inspire you? Like, I hear a lot about recycling. I hear a lot about digital printing. There's more and more farmers coming on board with organic. So it'd be interesting to hear, because I remember a few years ago I did some research on organic cotton, and it was hard to find non-toxic defoliants, so it was something that just getting the cotton out of the plant was extremely toxic, and so people were doing it by hand. So what are some things that you're hearing about lately that you think are really exciting? Yes.
There's some really cool stuff going on. I mean, you've got recycling and upcycling, and like Racer, they take recycled products and then they totally cut again from scratch and upcycle and make something new out of it, which is awesome. One of the latest things, actually, and we shot her collection yesterday. This is going to gross you all out, but I think it's completely genius. She, Leila Hafsi, which is one of Coco Rico's favorite designers, and she's just created a new collection that is much more affordable, because usually she was doing these fabulous sort of red carpet ready dresses that were a pretty penny. But she's got a much easier collection now. And what they actually do, it's organic fibers, and they are woven by these small co-ops in Nepal and India. And then actually, once they're woven as a way to antibacterialize the fiber, they are soaked in goat urine, would you believe? Because it is a natural antibiotic. I know, right? It's sexy. As I told my celebrity cover girl that yesterday, she was putting it on. Yes, that's been in goat pee. But, I mean, it's obviously washed out, but it's a natural antibacterial, which means there's absolutely no chemicals that go into the production of her garments. And then these women cooperatives, then once the fiber and fabric's obviously been rinsed of, the goat urine, and it's all clean and dry. They are actually dyeing using vegetable-based products, so berries, plants, herbs, like whatever, and the collection is so, so stunning. And it's amazing what you can do sort of when you just go back to Mother Nature and get inspired by the gifts we've been given. It's all right there. So that's one from me. Goat pee.
Just really quick, going back to just finding what is already here, I think is what to me is always exciting. It's what we based our business on, making stuff that, I started the company. I have absolutely no fashion background. I didn't go to fashion school. I was just an avid, crazy flea market shopper that went to Goodwill like every day of my life. And just seeing how much stuff there was still today is what inspires the company, is what inspires me to make new clothes from old clothes. And really, everything that you see, all the prints, even styles, is inspired from before. So I feel like that's always exciting to me. If you can take something old and make it brand new again, it's fun. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's really hard and expensive, but it's good to see something old come back to new again.
Actually, you should model for us, stand up and tell us about your outfit.
Jeez. I won't stand up, but really briefly. Okay. Okay. Everything I'm wearing is recycled, and it's from our line Bridget Catisse. I'm wearing a leather skirt, so this was really huge and long. I just had to taper it down. But what's for our fashion students out here, what's difficult is that we have to make a lot of patterns just to make this skirt, because it comes from all different shapes of leather skirt, if that makes sense. And then this is from a very, very crazy old, like grandma's, like really long dress that we made into a top. And then this final thing that I'm wearing is from a men's blazer, again, cut down. The lining has been changed. And it's really cute, right? So I hope to think. So everything I'm wearing is recycled. And, what we really try to push for a brand is that, I was telling Susanna, is that when you go into a store that we sell to, you will never, think that it was recycled until you looked at the label.
Yeah, definitely. Dale, do you have anything to add?
Well, it's interesting for me to hear all the different ways that people can, the designers can get inspired and decide to take their own initiative and create a market for it. So I come from a much more commercial background, but it's great to see you guys, you take your passion and you go. And for the big companies like Patagonia or our company or Jason's company, it's the ethos. You can't imagine ever doing it any other way. It's not, can you be sustainable? There's no other way to do business. We have to. So I think that kind of mindset that's something new in the last 5-10 years. There's innovation going on everywhere. A lot of recycled fabrics. So you want to look for the mills and the fabric companies that are trying to innovate. But yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you. So next, we hear a lot about reducing consumption, and in the sustainability community, it's all talk about just buy less stuff. But really what it comes down to, even Patagonia recently made a statement about trying to influence consumers to purchase less stuff. Now, the problem is reduced consumption is a direct cause of recession. So we look at the recession we're in now, and part of that's brought on by the fact that we're buying less stuff. So does environmental sustainability have to come at the expense of economic sustainability? What can companies do to promote responsible economic growth?
I think it actually goes hand in hand. If you're doing something for the planet, obviously you're going to be consuming less. If you're consuming less, you're spending less. That's just, it is what it is. So how can we actually create a win out of that, where the country, say for example the United States, actually gets to flourish economically now, which it desperately needs to do. And one of my big things is we need to bring manufacturing back here home. It's got to be done locally and in a way that can compete with China and Asia. So how do we do that? How can we make it affordable and easy and accessible for designers, such that you can get stuff made in the USA and support the economy and the workforce and still have it be sustainable?
I like to think of kind of the whole consumption industry as a pyramid. So at the very top of the pyramid, you have this group that's very like label conscious. They're very they want status symbols. They want the best that money can buy. And at the bottom of the pyramid, you have people who don't care about quality or where it's made. They just want to make sure they're getting the best deal possible. And generally, right now, the entire sustainable fashion industry is targeting this middle segment, which is, you know, willing to pay a little bit more for better quality or for making sure that it's produced in a transparent, you know, ethical way. But they're not they don't want to spend a ton of money. And I think the best thing that the sustainable fashion industry can do is to expand their reach down and up. So start making things that are affordable enough that, you know, that are for recession-proof goods. And you see things like this even at like Target or Costco, where you have recycled, you know, paper towels or toilet paper or, you know, 7th generation like dish soap. And then you expand it up. And I think brands like Prada just came out with a fair trade-ish. It's not certified, but it's called the Made In collection, and it's still got the Prada label, and it's still got the product quality, but they're kind of giving a nod to locally made materials and the artisans who are making it in India, in Peru, in developing countries. So I think expanding the reach is really the best thing that people can do, that designers can do in a recession to make sustainable fashion sustainable.
I would challenge the premise of that question because the economy in which has gone down is essentially making cheap shit that doesn't help anybody, and I don't think the world needs cheap shit that doesn't help anybody, and I don't believe that's one of our premises at PACT, is that we're going to expand the types of products that we sell, but we actually have a design rule which says we will never make shit the world doesn't need, and I think that an economy made on things that the world doesn't need is not an economy that we should be trying to, you know, reach to. And so I actually don't think that the best thing I can do is figure out how to still maintain some mantle of greenness and get my underwear down to $2 a pair, and so that people throw it out after 3 months of use. I actually think the best thing I can do is, you know, maybe get it, I agree with MJ's comment, get it more affordable, but get it to the point where it's still a item that articulates my customers' values, that helps out the things that they believe in, that has a supply chain that you can be proud of, that reduces the carbon footprint. All of these things aren't going to come cheapest. And so I think we really, if we're designing and we're building things for kind of a next generation or a reset of the economy, it really needs to be things that articulate the values and help people. And maybe that's not always going to be done as cheaply as possible.
Absolutely.
Plus, people always need underpants.
That's why we're in it.
Change starts where?
With your underwear.
Just going off of what Jason was saying, you know, for a while, obviously, because the economy is so tough, you know, when I was thinking about, okay, how can I make sure I survive? How can we make more money? It's like, it's impossible for us, particularly our product. We cannot make it cheaper. You know, we're made in LA. We don't have that many employees. I'm pretty much, here I am. I do everything. So is my boyfriend and my partner and an intern. So it's like, I cannot make it cheaper. That's just the bottom line, unfortunately. But I have to go off of the fact that what I do is special and it's one of a kind, and that's the selling point, and period. And it's like, I just have to write it out because I can't make a dress for $20. It's just unfortunate, but.
And I think with fashion, I mean, that's the point. You spend a little more on your pieces. I mean, you know, having style, it's not about just being a complete label whore and following what comes down the runway. You know, you should be able to pick pieces that, you know, go from season to season effortlessly. They're classic. You invest a little bit more money and you hold on to them. And then, you know, it would be really awesome to have some pieces that are more accessible and affordable, you know, sort of dovetailing into what Jason says, not cheap, that falls apart and reflects values of a throwaway nation, but pieces that you invest in because you're proud of the story, the supply chain, et cetera, and you wear them. They, you know, add to your own sense of style, and you feel good about what you're wearing. You're not only looking great, but you're feeling good because of the choices you've been making. So,
exactly. Cool. Now, the whole thing with fast fashion and in the age of fast fashion, do you think we should be trying to change consumer behavior to get people to, buy these more classic pieces, or should we be looking more at finding ways of making fast fashion more sustainable? And I know none of you are actually, designing for H&M or, Zara or whatever. So it's a whole different aesthetic when you're, trying to do your own small line and then compete against that, because they have the volume, they have the efficiency of scale that they can charge ridiculously low prices where, it's hard to compete with. So, but, maybe too, speaking to MJ and Anna, how do you see, getting consumers, or, what do you see can be done to get consumers more interested in sort of slowing it down and buying something that's really lasting,
Sure. Okay. So my first kind of thought was about H&M last year on Earth Day released something called the Garden Collection, and it was basically presented as sustainable, and there were good things about it, but it was still fast fashion. It was, and probably the best thing that they did though was make it a limited edition, and it sold out in a hot minute. So you would then go on eBay and you'd see like this $40 dress that was now being sold, like resold for $250, which to me is completely defeating the point of fast fashion, first of all, and of sustainable fashion. So I think if you look at, it's just kind of a basic psychological principle that if you make something limited edition and one of a kind, like Raisa was saying, you can basically kind of drive up demand for that, but you have to do it in a very sort of targeted way. That's yeah.
Hello. Yes, I'm great with technology. We can tell. Okay, so for me, I think it's, and we were having a conversation about this earlier, Susanna, and you go into these stores like Forever 21 and you see the scores of teenagers that are standing on a Saturday afternoon to buy some top to wear to the local disco, and there's a little disclaimer on the counter that says, oh, the store sells products known to contain chemicals to give you cancer, which is Prop 65, correct, MJ? Okay. So with that, it's like, really I think there has to be an education to the consumer. Look at what you're buying. Look at the power you have with your dollar to vote. Look at how this is being made, and look at not what it's only doing to your planet, because if you don't care about your planet because you're too worried about looking good, which teenagers, come on, let's face it, we were all there once, what do we care, right? Oh, it's going to be here forever, so am I. But it's like, you're wearing stuff that is actually going to potentially kill you at some point further down the line. So there has to be an education for the consumer. It is imperative at this point. But I think also that fast fashion, there needs to be, again, a bridge away from that, because fast fashion is never going to be good for the planet, and it's never going to be good for you. It's just not. In any way you look at it. In fact, it was funny, Gary Harvey, who's a huge British creative director, and he's the designer of the very famous Financial Times recycled dress, huge, both in conventional fashion and also in sustainability around the world. And we did a story with him last year, and he was sort of telling us, he gets really, really angry because a lot of people will go to stores like H&M or Forever 21 and just on a mad spree, especially us girls, we get our, nicks in a knot, we're a bit blue, and we've got to go on a spending spree, and the stuff then sits in a plastic bag in the closet and never sees the light of day till it ends up in the landfill. And that's the point about fast fashion. It really is trash. So we need to really encourage Forever 21. It's never going to happen, but maybe more like the FHMs and stuff. And it's not FHM.
H&M.
Thank you, H&M. FHM. H&Ms and designers and the Zaras and the Mangos.
Topshop.
Yeah, Topshops and those that really do have the ability and the resources to make things that are maybe a little more sort of fast and a little more accessible and maybe have a slightly higher price tag, but that can really sort of bridge this gap with fast fashion, because it really is, to me, a two-pronged conversation. It's both ends.
There is one brand, it's a British brand, that just started doing it's ASOS.com, ASOS.com, and they're now doing basically like an online clothing swap. So if you've bought something from them, you can then trade it with somebody else who also is on that website, who also likes their design aesthetic. and get something that's new to you. So I think they charge some sort of transaction fee because they are making money on it. But that to me is actually one of the more responsible things that I think a fast fashion retailer can do, is to encourage people to take good care of their stuff, first of all, and second of all, to make sure it gets a new home rather like ending up in a landfill.
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
Yeah, and it's funny because with H&M, there was the big scandal recently about they were just sort of mutilating clothing and throwing them in the dumpster that people hadn't bought, and they could have sold it to you to remake into something new and fabulous. I know. I actually thought about that a while ago in a project where it was like, wait, they try to get new stock in every day, and so the old stock has to go somewhere. And you could go to talented designers and say, here, make this into something new. It's not that out of fashion. It's from yesterday. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. All right. So beyond marketing, what does sustainable fashion really mean? Like from sourcing to supply chain to the store design, how many cumulative efforts truly enabled a brand to be sustainable? And it's true, there's no such thing as 100% sustainable clothing or any product. It all has an impact. So maybe Jason and Dale could take us through the process, start to finish, from the cotton from the cotton farm to so from the cotton farm to the store. Let's talk about your process. So start with Jason, then we'll go to Dale.
I actually think Dale would probably be better to lead with this.
Okay.
I don't do this side of the business. I know it, but this is Dale's area. I'm going to say one thing though that is just to throw us a little bit off course though. That the most important thing I think is that we often on these kinds of panels talk about it. Well, if you do X, Y, and Z, that will be great. The most important thing to have a sustainable clothing company is to make a really good product. Mm-hmm. The sustainability doesn't matter if your stuff doesn't sell. And so if you don't have a really amazing product that I actually, like when we started, we knew that we had to make the best quality underwear on the market was our goal. And I think we're almost there. We're not yet fully reaching it. There are a few that are maybe a little bit better, but overall, if we're doing all of these things, you have to make a great product. And consumers, even our customers who are as green as you might find them and the greenest amongst our consumers, they'll never come back. They'll buy it once. They'll never come back if the product sucks. And so you have to make a great product. And I actually think that's the most important ingredient in sustainable fashion is just overall excellence, green aside. And that's the way that you as a company or you as someone who makes a product or a garment can be sustainable is that it has to be good. But Dale can walk you through it's good and good.
Everybody's always looking for a black and white, always, is this better than that? Or it's a process, and you try to make improvements in every decision you make. And I want to emphasize, to you designers that when you define a product or you create the style definition, it's your opportunity to build in the best choices you can make for the planet and the people in the process. You put a technical package together and you send it off. Somebody's going to make it the way you specify it. And it's up to you to drill down with, the people making your fabric and the people sewing your product and understand and have a relationship with them to always continually make it better. So you guys are sitting in a seat to control this whole thing, which is both the responsibility and it's really exciting. I mean, you can pioneer. So what was the original question? The process of
walk us through the process of creating eco t-shirts. I'm in the t-shirt business, and t-shirts are often used as an example because there's not a lot of different raw materials in it, and the supply chain is pretty straightforward. So maybe you don't know this, but cotton's a plant. It grows, it gets farmed, it gets harvested. In our country and in the industrialized world, cotton uses huge amounts of pesticides, herbicides, chemicals to grow in an industrial way.
What organic cotton is, it follows the same, to be simplistic, it follows the same rules and regulations as food. And so it's grown without any of those, of those chemicals. In the harvesting process, it gets harvested by hand. In this country, in order to, for the mechanization to happen to pick the cotton, they put defoliants on it, and that's what you were talking about, and then they can pick it. So the leaves have to, brown and fall off before they can pick it. So you have, you have the lint, you have the cotton that goes to a gin, and the gin then takes the seeds and the trash out of it and creates these bales of cotton that go to the spinner. And then the spinner spins whatever yarn count you need depending on the quality of the cotton, and then it goes to the knitter and the dyer and the cutter and the sewer. I mean, you've learned all that. But what we do in the organic world is we monitor every stage. So the cotton gets grown according to a standard, and it gets certified to that standard, and it goes to the next step, and we have transaction certificates for all the steps. So at the end of the day, when you buy a T-shirt from in our case, we can show you that it's been certified in every step, and we can even label it to show that it is. That's basically how a T-shirt works. I mean, there's a million details in the dyeing and the finishing and all that, but we are basically making sure that everybody in the process is treated fairly, and the environment is too.
Okay. Yeah.
We do things completely different from Dale, just as far as like how we make clothes. Our line sheet, basically, because everything is one of a kind, the buyer has to pick, and they don't know until they open their shipment what they're getting. So it's very full of surprises. But we, like for instance, we narrow it down as far as prints. Like you are either going to choose from animal, solid, tribal. And then from there, we go to what they call rag houses, which is, to me, the best place you can go to. It's like a Goodwill, but like 50,000 square feet of awesomeness. And I go there and I pick all day based on the orders we have. So for instance, I had 100 orders of tribal print. I have to pick 100 tribal prints of something to make. And then we wash it, and then from there it goes to downtown, and each one gets cut. And so it's very stressful because sometimes you don't find it, but 99% of the time I do, because that's how much stuff there is out there. There's so much stuff, and there's so many rag houses locally, and it's a joy because you never know sometimes what print you're gonna get, even for me, and the buyer too. So you wanna sell to those people that, what Jason was saying, that they care about what you're doing, and at the end of the day you want to put out a product that you want to wear and that you're going to be proud of, and just bridging the whole mass market fashion forward kind of thing. I always again talk about how you want to make stuff that you want your friends to wear, and that you want to be proud of, and that when people go up to buy it, they don't even really know that it's recycled. So
yeah, definitely. I remember when I was at Burning Torch, they had she designed a jacket that was made from Arctic parkas, like these white parkas that they wear in the snow. It's snow camo. It was basically so you're camouflaged when you're out fighting a war in the snow. And they were a particular Swiss snow camo. And the design assistant was on the phone every day all over the world. Do you have any of this Swiss snow camo? Like they did not have enough for their orders, because they had this great sample, and a lot of people loved it. So it was tough, and it's hard when you're dealing with vintage, to find everything that you need. And then I want to talk a little bit about dyes, because I know you have a lot of very sort of a muted palette, very natural palette, and then you have like much more colorful palette. And so, what are you guys doing as far as dyes? What do you see happening in dye techniques that's interesting, and like where it's moving, because that's always been a massive impact. I mean, like the Yangtze River in China is a horrendous mess, mainly, because of the dye stuffs that are being sort of leached into there. So
I can take a stab at it for making colorful underwear. We did decide that we were going to actually use colors and not go like the vegetable dye route or just go like the drab and Debbie Downer route with underpants. I mean, who wants to be wearing like gray or like taupe underpants? But we sell gray too. But you know, in general, it's like you don't want that to be your only part of your palette. And so we use GOTS certified inks and dyes, which Global Organic Textile Standard, and it means that there are no heavy metals. That there are chemicals. They're much less bad than many of the other ones that are out there on the marketplace. I mean, dyes are the dirty underbelly of the whole supply chain. I mean, they are really that is where you'll find almost the most harm. And so, if there's no certifying body on the inks or dyes, it's watch out. Like you're putting bad chemicals on your body, and they harmed the people that you worked with them. But that being said, you can have a great palette. We have bright colors. They all come. They have good color fast. They look good. They hold up, and they're all done with the Global Organic Textile Standard. It makes it much harder for us. We only have one dye house in the southern half of Turkey. There's only one place that we can dye our products, and so if they're held up, we're held up. So it's not a commodity. It's not easy to do, but you do get a full kind of creative palette of whatever you want to make. We've never had a dye limitation.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I would say that. Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yeah.
I would say that you have to keep your customer in mind all the time, and being able to wash and wear and easily take care of a garment is really important. Feeling good about how you look and what you're wearing is also really important. So color is important. You can't not have color in this world. I mean, therefore, synthetic dye stuffs are really important. So what we do is we try to and we're also GOTS certified, and all of our dye stuffs adhere to that standard. But that's not the only standard. I mean, if you're sourcing a dye house, you know, and you find out if they're Urcotux 100 certified, then you know that they have some mentality and understand what it means to buy the quality dye stuffs and make sure that there's no toxicity next to your skin. So that's already a better step. You find out if a dye house is ISO 14001 certified. That way you know they have a recycling wastewater treatment plant, that they're not putting dirty water into the effluent and killing all the fish in the stream. It's becoming more and more the norm. I mean, in my career, I've seen, you know, blue rivers turn clear in Portugal based on these improvements. So things have gotten better. I don't know if you've heard of Blue Sign. Blue Sign is a Swiss organization that certifies mostly dye houses. So we're talking about reducing, you know, the time and temperature, reducing, you know, salt, reducing water, being more efficient with the whole process. But talking about the underbelly, there are those cases, you know, you go to China and you don't ask the questions, or you don't visit and see with your own eyes, you have no clue what they're doing. And that's where it gets dicey. So the certification, if you buy a certified product, then you know that somebody was looking after it, and you can't always be in China, you know, doing all that. So.
Absolutely. I remember walking the floor at the Magic Sourcing Expo in October, and I think it was October. Anyway, talking to different textile vendors, you know, mostly from China, almost predominantly there, and asking them, oh, do you have organic cotton? Do you have bamboo? Do you have recycled polyester? Can you do this in recycled? And it was really interesting to gauge their reactions, because these are sales reps. And so some of them were like, oh yeah, whatever you want, we got it. And then other ones were like, well, actually, I'm not so sure, but I can look into it. And that was the one that I was interested in, you know, the one who's not just going to automatically say, yeah, anything you want. Because, you know, there are people who will promise you the moon and then just do whatever they're going to do. So at this point, we're going to open it up to the floor. I'd love to hear your questions for the panelists. Yes.
So you started touching on a really interesting trend of how fast fashion has impacted sustainable fashion. Now, in the long run, obviously things are Sorry. I was saying you touched on how fast fashion has impacted sustainable fashion. As going green, quote unquote, or being more sustainable in your production and manufacturing and also marketing, everything that goes into being a greener brand, how do you see the big retailers harming and or helping you? I mean, I saw Normal Kamali in her line for Target. There was a line of organic of tees that were produced on organic cotton. So do you think that, you mentioned like Target having eco-friendly product lines, what is going to be the impact of big brands, bigger retailers on sustainability?
Can I jump into this? Great question. Firstly, thank you. I think it's interesting you mentioned Norma Kamali because she's in our new issue, and we just found out it was one of those random things that we sort of fell over. Norma's been making dresses since the 60s, and she started making things out of recycled FedEx envelopes. So you're going back like 50 years ago, and this chick was pioneering back then. And I think that's really going to be key. It's really interesting that you mention sort of the Normas in conjunction with the collections at Target and stuff. I think the more of these designers, whether it's Rodarte, whether it's Rogan, thank you, or the Normas of the world, that actually they've been pioneering an effort towards sustainability for, since their inception. This is the way, I think, forward for fast fashion to educate the masses, because obviously if it's showing up in Target where fast fashion is very, very available, but yet it's, sustainable, they're now going to start thinking about what they're buying sort of on a larger scale. So that was awesome question. Thank you.
Do you think sustainability can kill fast fashion? Because I personally think it's a very disgusting trend. I do not like what fast fashion does to small to more established designers.
Yeah, no, I mean, God, I don't even know what's going to stop fast fashion in its tracks. And it's funny, I'm a very, very dear friend of mine. She makes gorgeous, gorgeous costume jewelry. It's all out of recycled sterling silver. And she got ripped off by Forever 21. Massively ripped off. And, you look at that. Now, she was lucky. She got a lawyer. She fought and she won. But while this is going on with them, it's really providing a very, very difficult course in general moving forward. Sustainability is not going to kill fast fashion. I don't know what is going to kill fast fashion any more so than the education of the consumer and the wake-up call, the realization that what am I supporting here? Where am I putting my money? Am I supporting brands that rip others off? Christy got lucky in winning her case. I know a lot of people that haven't. And Forever 21 have ripped off, Gwen Stefani. You name it. They're just out there churning all the time. It's going to be the consumer that kills fast fashion. So that goes back to your question earlier, Suzanne, about the education. And I think designers working in conjunction with lines like Walmart and Target and doing sustainable collections, that's really a way to go. It's in the education of the consumer. That's what's going to kill it.
I also think it's going to be the consumer educating the big business. I think as long as there's a demand, I think that the supply will follow. Right now, the U.S. is a bit behind Europe in particular. Target is doing the Norma Kamali, the Loom State, the Rogan organic cotton collections, but as long as they keep selling out, Target's going to be incentivized to start finding more collaborations that are going to offer a similar product and sort of satisfy a similar sensibility. And I mean, especially if you look in Britain, you have more brands like Primark or Marks and Spencer who are collaborating with From Somewhere, which is this huge ethical brand in Britain. The founder of that one puts on Esthetica, which is the London Fashion Week ethical fashion segment. And I think really consumers need to drive demand here so that we're not lagging behind Europe at this point.
I would actually throw a slightly different perspective that I actually don't believe that consumers are going to necessarily be the driving force. I think they're only going to be the driving force once they have better alternatives in front of them. And right now, I mean, we see this when we survey our customers, that sustainability or the values behind our product is a fourth purchasing criterion at best. And this is with a really, really, really highly educated, super sort of green group of people, and yet it's a fourth criterion. And so I think what there's a huge opportunity as entrepreneurs or as designers if you actually design something that is an alternative to fast fashion that makes fast fashion look disgusting. That's only when it's going to change, is when there's a much better alternative out there that is maybe, with the value calculation that consumers are having, that maybe it's, you wear it twice as long, it might cost twice as much, but all of a sudden you have a different type of product that people love. And that's when people will switch. It's not, I say it as a slightly skeptical business person behind a sustainable brand, that consumers don't lead the way on this, that they're going to be held by the hand by people who show them the way.
Yes.
I think there's such a trend in food right now with locally grown vendors and farmers and food, but in fashion that hasn't translated as much. I know companies like Project Alabama are now growing and milling their own cotton in the Southeast so that they have greater visibility of the supply chain. Do you ever see that being something that moves away from the fringe into the mainstream in fashion or becomes more popular?
I want to actually start with that one. It's something that I've done a lot of research on, and also what's funny, you mentioned Project Alabama. I recently was in Loehmann's and bought a Project Alabama shirt that was made in India. And I was like, wait, what? But that was kind of shocking. But, people in India need jobs. And what's interesting is a lot of the designers I've worked for, because I've been in product development in the industry since before time began, and in New York and LA. And New York used to have a really thriving manufacturing base. And LA did too, and you can still get things done in LA, but like what we were talking about before the thing was that you can't get the one-stop shopping you can get in China, so that sort of needs to be as easy to get as good quality, even though it's more expensive. It's always going to be more expensive to make here, but the quality is not. I mean, China's quality is so much better than it used to be now, and it's so much easier for designers. So it's something where you can't just, it's push and pull. So the customer has to look at the label and go, where is this made? And go, why is this, $500 designer dress made in China when it used to be made in Italy? Why am I going to pay $500 for it still? And so there needs to be that awareness on the consumer level, but there also needs to be something easier for designers so that they don't have to work harder to get stuff made locally than they do to get it made overseas. So anyone else want to? Yeah? Okay, yes.
Hi. I just have a question on what you think the future of eco-fashion is, and also what's your take towards eco-fashion in other parts of the world, say Asia specifically. I come from Asia, and before I actually came to America, I don't know much. I don't know anything about eco-fashion at all. Only when I started coming here, I realized it's pretty big here, and that what I put on actually could cost my life. So, but when I was in Asia, nobody cared about such thing, and fast fashion is dominating so much in Asia. So that's just.
Yeah. So why don't you start, Anna? Yeah.
Hello. It's really interesting that you talk about that. I think one of the most exciting things I've learned in the last 2 years of doing Coco Eco is actually how global sustainable fashion is. And I tend to stay away from the word eco. I think eco kind of limits us to green, and everyone at this point with green is and it doesn't fully, to me, also express what is possible for fashion. And sustainability is sort of an all-encompassing word. So looking at that, what's really been exciting to me is looking at the different avenues of what is sustainable, whether it's made sort of locally, whether it's locally in South America or in Southeast Asia or whatever, and how it's made, these great cooperatives of artisans. I know of several in Southeast Asia, for jewelry, for fashion, for you name it, and in the Philippines, for example, where they've been using pineapple fiber for years, and now these co-ops in the Philippines, and now there's a demand for this product. The same with cork in Portugal, and these artisans who've been doing this for years, who now all of a sudden have commerce and money coming back through, and their work is valued and appreciated, and they're making in small batches with zero waste. I think the future for me for sustainable fashion, it's absolutely infinite. And what I really would like to see, and I think we are headed much more that way, because I think, from what I've learned, consumers are starting to care now. They really, really are. I think there are a lot of people that are sick and tired of getting ripped off. There's obviously a great big part of the population of the world that's still sleepy or got their head stuck in the sand, but we'll get it out. And I think eventually, it will become a conversation where it's not about sustainable fashion anymore. It is just fashion. And as the big designers, again, do things, whether it's pioneers like Norma Kamali or Prada doing a line that's more sort of in line with fair trade ethics. Donna Karan has Urban Zen, which is not using sort of materials, but that's a very philanthropic, cause-related collection that is actually all about Haiti right now. And as these big dogs start to do stuff and influence the consumer, you'll see change. But my final point is there's a ton going on in Southeast Asia in fashion. And that's been the really most exciting thing for me to see what is going on in the world. And there is a whole empire going on of designers and couturiers and people that are making collections that can really, really rival what's coming out of the United States. I don't think it's all about what's going on here. I think it's what's going on all over the world. And Asia is actually, there's a lot going on. I think maybe they just talk less about it, but there's an awful lot going on there. I hear about it all because they all kind of tend to come looking for me. But it's exciting, and it's a global conversation now. That's to me what sustainable fashion is. It's a global conversation about fashion.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to add about that. As far as the future of sustainable fashion, the Natural Resources Defense Council is doing a lot they've been working with some of the larger brands like Nike and Walmart to, really help them to find, they've created this sort of best practices for factories in China, and a lot of factories are sort of coming on board with that. And then they're also now starting to work with the more high-end fashion designers in New York to get them interested in using the more sustainable factories. So it's something where it's like, look, if we're going to have all these things being made in China, at least let's try to find the factories with the best practices and teach them how to implement those best practices. So that's an option. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With sustainability or sustainable clothing being, or eco-friendly clothing, being a little bit more expensive, sustainable clothing, whether it be made domestically, being a little bit more expensive, how has the recession affected the cause of sustainability in the garment industry?
It's been tough. I was having a conversation with Anna and Suzanne about.
I just want to add one thing before I fall and die. Just because when we were talking about fast fashion, the Forever 21s and the Topshops, well, Topshop not so much, but the H&Ms, when the recession hit, everybody was very proud that they only spent less than $20 on a pair of jeans or, a shirt for $1.50. And people were speaking this way, and sustainable all of a sudden went to economically what they could afford. So sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Okay. Oh, no. All right. I was speaking with them earlier about how, especially now with the recession, you really, as a designer, you have to be careful with the people that you ship to, because a lot of times what's happening is that you are making clothes for these orders, and then when you're ready to ship, they're canceling, and you're stuck with the product. And it is hard to compete with H&M and Forever 21, but what we're doing now is just really being choosy and particular with the accounts that we're selling to. So, we know that, let's say, Shopbop is gonna, they've ordered from us, it's an online retailer, and they're gonna pay, and it's a huge market where they get tons of visits. So it's important for us to ship to them and just be really particular. And at the end of the day, if they love your product, even if it's a little bit more or a lot more expensive, they're gonna continue to order because, thankfully people are still ordering them. So our approach is just to be very selective and make sure that we're spending wisely and not, basically trying to get as many new accounts as possible, because you don't know if they're gonna take the order. And that's the scary part of it.
I think the other thing is, though, too, that, you get what you pay for. If you're spending $1.50 on a top, it's going to fall apart, no matter how well you take care of it. If you're spending $20 on a pair of jeans, you're going to have to go out in a month or two and spend another $20 and another $20. And before you know it, you've spent the equivalent over an elongated period of time of what you might have invested in one item that is sustainable, that is still going to last beyond the keep spending $20, keep spending $20, because it'll go on and on. I think that's probably where I'm starting to see the greatest growth now personally, is that, sustainable items that are maybe a little bit higher, they're more mid-priced, not talking super expensive, we're not talking super cheap, but a good mid-priced line that, again, you're going to keep, you're going to wear, it's going to go past the season, you'll take it into next season, you spent a little bit more, but, you get what you pay for, and I think that's ultimately what we have to remember and what people are starting to see now, and that, it's not about quantity, it is about quality.
Yeah, okay, so with that, I just want to add one thing, and then we're going to end. But I think, my sort of mindset has shifted a lot, and I'm hoping that this can kind of be a zeitgeist, is that instead of taking pride in, I caught that one Lanvin piece at H&M, how about, I saved up for that Lanvin piece that I can pass on to my daughter, it's something like, why waste money on the one that's just the brand, but really is developed and manufactured at the same factory as all the other stuff in that store, when you can spend the money on something that is handmade, in a really, exquisite manner. So with that, I'm sorry, but that's, the end of it, and you guys can talk to us after. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thanks.